Today it's time to bring channel the most beloved build in our Druid community, and that is the Shred build. We all love how it tears through everything it spots at incredible speed, which makes it perfect for farming this season. And once again, it positions itself as one of the best builds to complete all activities in the game. We can also use it with Godslayer Crown to make your farming even more satisfying. Stay tuned to see in detail how it works, the gear I'm using, the skill tree, Paragon and more. Don't forget to like and subscribe, that way we can reach more players around the world. Thank you so much. Let's get into the video. Hello everyone, Zaior here bringing you a new video to the channel, and I know most of you have always liked the build we are going to see today. We all know how fast it is for clearing content, especially when it comes to farming, which is where we spend most of our time when playing. There is something about this build that everyone loves, simply because it's one of the fastest builds that Druid currently has. The Shred build is known for exactly that, fast and effective in all content, and this season will be no exception. First, I want to make it clear that this build is focused on efficient and fast farming. As you can see, if I want to push, I have my pulverize build here, but if I want to farm, we go with Shred. Another advantage is that both builds share most of the items and templates, which makes transitioning between builds much easier for most players. Let's start by explaining how this build works. First, we focus on Shred, which is the skill responsible for all of our damage. We mainly power it with our ultimate Grizzly Rage, which gives us more damage and more damage reduction. However, to use Grizzly Rage with Shred, we need an aspect that allows us to use Werewolf abilities during Grizzly Rage, since Grizzly Rage is normally a werewolf skill, not a werewolf one. This aspect is Direwolf, which transforms us into a dire werewolf instead of a dire werewolf, allowing us to use ability like Shred. It also replaces the damage reduction with movement speed and resource cost reduction, and kills heal us for 10% of our maximum life. Once we understand this core mechanic, we can start building the rest of the setup with gear, skill tree and Paragon. Another key aspect is Rampaging Werebeast, which is fantastic because it increases our damage while using Grizzly Rage. Another important one is a Rabbit Beast, which converts our direct damage into poison damage. This means Shred goes from physical damage to poison damage, and it deals 80% more damage. This aspect works while shape-shifted, so we no longer need Grizzly Rage active like before. Another key aspect is Stormclaw, which makes our critical hits deal a percentage of their damage as lightning damage. This improves Shred's AoE, making it easier to clear packs of enemies. But here comes another important item in the build. Shred relies heavily on critical strikes to restore spirit and increase damage, thanks to passives like Lupine Ferocity and nodes like Last of Carnage. That item is the Waxing Gibbous. In short, it guarantees critical strike most of the time after killing an enemy while leaving stilled. It also provides excellent affixes like ranks to Shred and Toxic Claws. For defenses, we will use Temerity, since it generates a barrier based on a percentage of our maximum life. We achieve this through Life on Hit, which works like Life Leech, healing us beyond our maximum life, and that's when the barrier is generated. Overall, this is the core of the build to understand its main function. Let's quickly go over the game loop, since playing this build is actually very simple. First, we stack Quick Shift, alternating Maul and Shred until we reach 6 stacks. Simple. Then we activate Grizzly Rage and the party begins. Remember that Grizzly Rage now ends after a duration and only then its cooldown begins. Because of that, Earthen Bulwark becomes a solid defensive option while we reset Grizzly Rage. And how do we reset it? Let's talk about that now. As I mentioned earlier, this is the rune pair we use to reset Grizzly Rage, and it works very well. It will be POC Sec. Sec resets the cooldown of our ultimate in 1 second, and with POC it will activate it constantly, since Shred consumes resources very quickly. Another option is Tam, which activates when casting a core skill. I haven't tested it yet because I don't have the rune, but it should work perfectly fine as well. The second rune pair focuses on increasing our damage, and there are two options, Moni Shan or Moni Cax. For farming, I prefer Moni Shan because it guarantees overpowered critical hits, giving us more consistent damage and a smoother gameplay. Moni Cax is usually better for pushing, but this season we are focusing on efficient farming with this build, since it's weaker for pushing. Okay, there aren't many details to go over regarding the gear. I will just give you some key tips and what I think are the things you should prioritize. For the helmet, there are two options, Hair of Perdition and Godslayer Crown. Hair of Perdition will give us more damage without a doubt. Here, the best thing you can do is upgrade the core skill affix. Godslayer, on the other hand, will give us a slightly more efficient farming since we'll be able to pull enemies constantly, although it also works for killing bosses. If you have Hair of Perdition, I'd rather to use that instead of Godslayer Crown. If you go with Godslayer Crown, upgrade the alt stat affix is the best one. For the chest, we also have two options, Mad Wolf's Glee and Shroud of All Dead. Honestly, I really love Mad Wolf's Glee, even though Shroud might be slightly more beneficial. Mad Wolf's Glee gives us everything we need, more life, more attack speed, ranks to Shred, and a higher percentage to Lupine Ferocity, which is quite a lot. I will personally stick with Mad Wolf's Glee. For the globes, it's important to have at least 3 of these 4 affixes. Willpower, ranks to Shred, and armor. And why armor? Because we need more defenses than before in order to survive longer in fights, since we no longer have any seasonal power or benefit like before. Here we will use the aspect of the Brewed Beast, which increases Shred damage by 75% and also has 33% chance to trigger an additional attack. Tempering is extremely important here because Werewolf attack speed does not add to our base attack speed. It's a hidden stat that works separately from our normal attack speed. So even if we already have 100% attack speed, this extra percentage will still help us attack even faster. For the pants, we will use Temerity, which I already explained earlier, just like our weapon in Waxing Gibbous. On Temerity, upgrade the armor affix, and on Waxing Gibbous, I recommend ranks to Shred, although the Toxic Claws affix is also quite good. I almost forgot about the boots. Here the important thing will be resistances and movement speed, simple as that. Ideally in the totem, we want these affixes, but the most important thing will be having the chance for Shred to deal double damage as high as possible. The amulet has always been difficult to find. I recommend having at least 2 passives, ideally. In this case, Envenom and Toxic Claws are the best options. The tempering here will be Grizzly Rage duration, since if we already have good gear, attack speed won't be as relevant anymore, so extending the duration of Grizzly Rage becomes the priority. Starless Sky is unbeatable this season. Less resources cost, more damage, and very strong affixes. But if you don't have it, in the guide you will find an alternative that replaces it. Finally, we'll use an Ancestral Ring, and the most important thing here will be attack speed with GA if possible, life on hit for the synergy with Temerity, and very importantly the chance for enemies to become vulnerable. The tempering will be Grizzly Rage duration. Let's go over the skill tree and we'll explain the important things. First, Maul helps us stack Quick Shift, just like explained earlier, that's its main utility. Next is Shred. We will put 5 points here to increase its base damage, and we'll use Primal Shred to increase our critical strike damage by 30%. For defenses, we'll use 3 skills. First, Earthen Bulwark, which will help us when we are outside of Grizzly Rage. It's important for absorbing damage, since outside of Grizzly Rage, we are a bit more fragile. Then we have Cyclone Armor, which passively reduces non-physical damage just by having it on our skill bar. We'll also invest 5 points here to further increase that damage reduction. Finally, we'll use Bloodhowl to heal ourselves and increase our damage. Next, we move to these 2 passives, Envenom and Toxic Claws. Envenom is important in all builds because it works a final multiplier for our critical hits, increasing their damage by a huge amount. Toxic Claws is especially good with Werewolf skill because its benefit is double when using Werewolf abilities, which is huge. We'll also invest 5 points into Grizzly Rage to maximize the skill's power and increase its duration. Finally, we take Lupine Ferocity, since it increases the damage of our critical hits by an X percentage multiplier depending on how much you have on your chest Mad Wolf Glee. But by default, it is a 75% increase. The Spirit Boons we will use are the following. First, Gift of the Stag, to increase our spirit and also generate it passively. This helps us keep our resources at optimal levels all the time without running out. Next, Swooping Attacks, which is perfect especially at the beginning to gain 20% attack speed. If you already have a high attack speed with your GR plus an attack speed potion, you can switch it for Iron Feather. Then we take Avian Rod for 40% more critical strike damage. This one is mandatory, no chance here. Next is Energize, which help us recover spirit occasionally, and it's also very important so spirit doesn't become a problem. And here comes one of the most important parts of the build. Believe it or not, if you don't have this boon active, the whole thing falls apart. Overload will poison enemies for us, and if we don't have it, most of our multipliers simply won't work. Envenom, Handed Malice, Constricting Tendrils, among others. So this one is absolutely indispensable. Currently, the Paragon for Shred has improved quite a bit, since previously we had a node that was less usable for this build, but now we can take advantage of Concentric Tendrils, which give us 40% more damage against poison enemies. But we'll start by talking about the Firstborn, and here we'll use Fang and Claw. This is the perfect glaive for this build, because it gives us damage to enemies that are close to us, and with Shred we are close to enemies all the time. Next, we move to a very important node for this build, which is Last of Carnage. This gives us more damage and also allows us to recover spirit. This is very important because this build consumes a lot of spirit. Here we'll use the Keeper Glyph, since with Rabid Beast our damage becomes poison damage, so Keeper with that 15% increase non-physical damage works perfectly for us. Next, we take Handed Malice, which increases our damage against poison enemies. And the glyph here will be a spirit to increase our damage and also the damage of our critical hits. Then we move to Constricting Tendrils, which as I mentioned before will give us 40% more damage against poison enemies. However, the second part doesn't work for us, because it only applies to nature magic skills, and Shred is not one of them. Although for the expansion it probably will be. The glyph here will be Headhunter to increase damage against elites and also gain more willpower, but if you had defense issues, the Werewolf glyph could help you reduce incoming damage. Finally, we have Ancestral Guidance, which increases our damage by 40%, and the glyph here will be Dominate. Overall, the reason why Shred remains one of the most beloved Druid builds is pretty simple. The gameplay just feels incredibly good. It's fast, aggressive, and extremely satisfying when everything starts chaining together. What makes it especially strong this season is how well it fits into a farming-focused playstyle. With the combination of Shred natural mobility, Grizzly Rage scaling, and the poison multipliers, the build can move through content at an incredible pace. Packs of enemies disappear almost instantly, and you are constantly moving from one fight to the next without slowing down. Another big advantage is the flexibility between builds. Since Shred shares many items with other stats like Pulverize, switching between farming and pushing builds becomes much easier than before. That's something that many Druid players will appreciate, especially if you like experimenting with different playstyles without rebuilding your entire character. Of course, Shred might not be the strongest build for pushing the absolute highest content right now, but that's not really the point. The real strength of this build is efficiency. If your goal is to farm materials, level glyphs, clear activities quickly, and enjoy one of the fastest playstyles the Druid has to offer, Shred is still an excellent choice. And honestly, that's why the community loves it so much. It captures that feeling of pure speed and distraction, where you're constantly jumping between enemies and tearing everything apart. If you want to see the full partner and all the details, make sure to check the guide in the description and the pinned comment. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, because that really helps the channel and lets me keep bringing more Druid builds and Diablo 4 content. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next build guide.